Please help me welcome Matt Roche with Extole, who is one of our sponsors, one of our key sponsors. Thank you so much for joining us today, who will talk about the power of customer-led growth. All right.
I love you guys. Okay, I want you to imagine something. For the last 2 years, you worked on a marketing campaign, a marketing program. You're really excited about it. You ran it. It saved 20% off what you were paying on a cost per acquisition. And you bring this CMO, and you're really excited. It's like, we save so much money. And they go, that is so awesome. I have been looking for a way to pay for a boss for you. That was the experience that I had about, 15 years ago, when I was running a company that is now called Adobe Target. We were landing page optimization and personalization platform. And we would run these landing page optimizations, and they would say, we'd go into a customer like, we just got you a 20% higher conversion rate on your, what they used to call PPC spend, what they now call digital marketing spend. And they would be like, awesome. Now I can spend more money on Google. You're just like, what about us, right? What about us? Why is all the money going to Google from the work that everyone else around here is doing? And so we're going to introduce a word. If you haven't seen this word before, it's called Enshittify or Enshittification. It describes an experience that all of us have felt, even if we didn't have this excellent word to describe it. And that is that experience when you are, sorry, the fonts got kind of messed up, but hopefully it'll all be readable. That experience when you find this great new digital product. It's Uber, it's Lyft, it's Google, it's name it. It'll happen with GPT, don't worry, right? And they're awesome. And it's like, I cannot believe how much value I am getting for this. Like when you were first doing PPC in like 2003, it was ostensibly free. There were 8-cent CPAs, right? It was magical, right? And companies were started on it, right? So you have this, by the way, my counter's not moving. Then it's like, well, now they got 30% market share, 40% market share. You know what? I'm not going to be so great up front. I'm going to put a bunch of crappy ads on the side. I'm going to make it more expensive. I'm going to make it more difficult. But I'm going to make sure that I make a lot of money on it, right? So I'm going to run a lot of ads. I'm going to be really great to the advertiser, but it's a little worse for the user. And then once they really have it locked up, they make it shitty for everybody. You know, if you're a retailer right now and you are buying media on Amazon, you are going to pay a percentage of your revenue, often 30, 35%. You're going to pay a slotting fee so that your search shows anywhere when someone searches for it. You're going to pay an inventory fee, a customer service fee. Potentially, if you have too much inventory, you'll pay a fee. And if you have too little inventory, you'll pay a fee. So if you're selling through Amazon, you're paying somewhere between 45 and 55% of every dollar you earn, you are paying to Amazon. Right? The same thing has happened to all of you. The cost to acquire a customer through digital media has gotten astronomical. One of the reasons why we're all in here talking about these neat ideas is that the underlying current is, if I could, I would just buy it on Meta. If I could press that magic button, I would just have them do it for me. And in fact, if we look at fintech and the growth of fintech over the last, 6, 7 years, honestly, I believe the growth of fintech was, first off, UX and mobile. Great UX and mobile, but the other is Meta did my advertising for me, right? You could just say, I need people who have young kids who might want their own little special credit card for a green light, right? And you basically describe what the parent looks like, and you press a button, and it just comes, right? And if you have an infinite amount of money from VC, you could build a very, very large customer base very, very quickly. Problem is, all that magic comes at a deeper and deeper cost. These guys want to essentially take your margin and make it their margin, and what else are you going to do? And it is going to continue this way. They are already introducing features to write your copy for you. They're introducing features to create your images for you. So you can really just give all your marketing over to them, but we kind of know what the result is going to be, right? So what I want to talk about is, what do we do who would like credit for our work, who would like to develop our brand, but do not want to pay extremely high rates to get access, right? And what I want you to imagine is that these guys are like, say it's like medieval times, right? Right? And you got a bunch of whatever it is you make, a bunch of sheepskins. I don't know what they used to sell during medieval times. Must have been something like that. And you're trying to get to the city, and the city's on the other side of a river. And you get to that river, and there's a guy there saying, "This is Matt's Bridge." And the neat thing about Matt's Bridge is if you want to go over it, you got to give me 30% of what's in your cart. And you go, "That's crazy. I spent a year raising these sheep. I've traveled 100 miles, and you're going to take 30%. He's like, "Or you can just not cross the bridge." Right? And that's where we are. This is our bridge to cross. Right? What are we going to do? So I wanted to go kind of back in time to when I got my first bank account. And my first bank account looked like this. This is not my first bank account, but it looked exactly like this. It was a company called Mechanics and Farmers, one of those that was destroyed in the S&L crisis. But it was like, literally, that's like a communist bank. It was Mechanics and Farmers. And I went with my $2.75, and I handed it to the lady, and she gave me a passbook. Why was I at Mechanics and Farmers? Because my parents were at Mechanics and Farmers. And why were they at Mechanics and Farmers? Because either their parents were, or their friends were, or you know exactly how this works. Because that's exactly why we're always at banks, right? And it's not something that went away, right? Gen Z, 52% of banking customers are doing it because of something their friend said, right? It didn't magically disappear when we went away from passbooks. This is how people make banking decisions. We sell products that are extraordinarily difficult to differentiate. In some cases, because they're not that different. In some cases, because the subtleties in how we do customer service, in how we give loans, and how we support them, they're just not sensible to the customers that we're selling to. So how exactly are you going to explain this differentiation by handing your marketing over to Google? It's not going to happen, right? We have to rely on the people around us to create our markets. We've gotten lazy because digital marketing has done the work for us. It's time to get a little unlazy. And our word for getting unlazy is customer-led growth. So customer-led growth is making your customers a primary vehicle for awareness, acquisition, and activation. It is a scalable approach. It is a mechanical approach. It is something that can be trained and managed and kind of digitized. But it basically says that every step along the way, I'm going to look to see how can my existing customer base drive my marketing efforts. I'm not going to say, how can I get the outside world to pay attention to me? Look at me, look at me. I'm going to say, how do I get my inside world to bring the outside world in? Does that make sense? All right, so what is customer-led growth? First off, customer-led growth is permission. When we do programs, and I'll explain what kind of programs are part of customer-led growth, we know who's participating, right? The cookie death thing, it came, it went, not sure exactly what it was, but it did show us that the idea that the people we're marketing through are not going to be kind about giving us customer information. So we have to kind of do our own work on that. Customer-led growth, everybody who participates gives you their identity. Probably more important is customer-led growth is high-quality customers. When compared, these numbers are for refer a friend programs, when compared to standard channels, double the conversion rate, 10 to 65% lower cost per acquisition, 5 to 20% higher profit. When you develop your customer base from your customer base, you get better customers. So when somebody is saying, oh, we have two problems to solve, we have to acquire new customers and we have to get new revenue out of new customers, it's nice to have something that actually deals with LTV, long-term value, and CAC, customer acquisition cost, right? All right. Customer-led growth is also a way of building a better company. So the CMOs in here, senior folks in here, this was a Harvard Bain study that was in the Harvard Business Review. They analyzed the correlation between the percentage of earned growth, and earned growth being growth that came from either referrals or from cross-sells and upsells to existing customer, that there was a direct correlation between enterprise value and the percentage of customers that came from the percentage of your revenue that comes from earned growth. Very straightforward, very linear, right? If you build a customer base from your customer base, you will have a more valuable enterprise. Next thing is customer-led growth is connection. Why do you think Meta and Google and these guys are so good at what they do? It's because not only do they know the person they're marketing to, they know who all their friends are, or their business associates, or whatever it is. LinkedIn knows the business associates, Meta knows a friend. When you run a customer-led growth program, which is what my company does, if you haven't guessed that, we're a platform for customer-led growth. What you do is you start understanding not only who your customers, but who they know, and how influential they are, and whether they bring in people who are high quality, and interestingly enough, whether they're bad quality. You know, one of the most successful customers we have does 30% of their customer acquisition through us. That is the highest. And one of the most successful things we did with them is run a program which we said tuned towards shitheads, right? And it just said that if we noticed somebody was a bad behavior, they would see the same program, but just with a really bad reward. And so they would be disincented to use the program. So understanding the quality of your customer, understanding the quality of the relationships, understanding the quality of the people bring in, starts giving a new dimension to your understanding of the customer. Does that make sense? These are real customers of real participants. The middle dot is the person who referred. The outer dots are people that they're friends. And you start seeing things like, oh, this guy brought in a bunch of people. Who brought in someone, who brought in someone, who brought in someone, who brought in people, right? Who's the most valuable? This person who has, $20,000 under deposit, or this person who brought in 100 customers? If you don't know the second fact, then it becomes an irrelevant question. If you do, it becomes extremely relevant. And not surprisingly, customer-led growth is growth. This is a way of growing without paying the customer acquisition cost of digital media. It's a reasonable way of growing. It is a powerful way of growing. So how does it work? I found it interesting, and there's a slight difference between the Gartner version of it and the way I'm doing it, but it's a similar story, but it's a different way of thinking about it, right? So, and I appreciate it. I really enjoyed this morning's presentations a lot. What this chart shows is that same kind of journey, but what you'll notice is that these are people's states. Like, I'm curious, I'm considering, I started the application, I submitted the application, right? And the reason we started doing journeys this way came out of a conversation with a company that was in the food delivery business, right? You guys use those Blue Aprons, the Freshlies, all those, right? Very, very big at one point. And one of the things they told us is if someone buys 7 meals, they stay a year longer than someone who buys less than 7 meals, right? And we're like, okay, so what does that mean? Well, they said, we need more 7-mealers, right? So that it wasn't that they needed to reach someone through a particular device or that they needed to reach someone in a particular way. There was a type of person that was a 7-mealer, and we needed to increase the number of those people. Who knows, maybe some among us are 7-mealers. Don't worry, you can keep it to yourself. So this isn't just an action, this is an audience or a population. It's a set of people. When you think about segmentation, it's not just women between 25 and 35 or people in an SMSA. It is people who are in a state, right? So they are considering the product, hey, could we move them to submit an application? Sure, let's put a welcome offer in place. We've done this before. That's nothing new about that. What we're saying is I want to move the people. There's a lot of them over here. I want to move them to something where there's maybe fewer, but they're much, much higher value. And then along the way, once someone's approved an account, okay, can I give them a bounty to download the app? Can I give them a bounty to do direct deposit? Can I encourage them to do debit card swipes, right? Because we know that a person who's a debit card swipe is more valuable than someone who doesn't do a debit card swipe, right? So instead of saying I'm going to put just a ton of stuff out there and hope it all works for people, you're saying I'm going to try to move you to being a debit card swiper. And maybe I can get 20% more people to do that, right? That's what customer-led growth is. Right? And then what we don't want to forget is some of the most value-creating activities we can do is to get people to rate, review, refer, advocate, essentially market on our behalf. Does that make sense? So how do we do this? So we run programs. And all a program is basically an outcome, an incentive, and a way to do it. Right? So programs can include contests, nominations. We did during COVID a ton of programs where nominate a frontline worker. Suggest, here's a nurse that I know, and I'd like for her to get some recognition for it. And so with some of the companies we worked with, we nominate a frontline worker, right? Great, right? Influencer programs, right? And referral programs, offers and challenges, friends and family. Each one of these we can say, let's take the set of people who are candidates for doing this thing, let's put together some sort of incentive, and let's see if we can move them along the path. This is not how we do it. Right? This is the standard. I want people to do things. I'm going to put together some offers, and I'm going to put a big wall of options on my site or in my app, and pray that they find this page, pray that they navigate this page, and pray that they do something on this page. What are the odds that anyone is going to read through this page looking for this? But if I can say, I'm only going to offer this to people who I know are potential appliers. I'm only going to offer this to people who have had it, who are in 3 months and haven't connected direct pay, right? I can target them, I can put an incentive in place, I can understand what the outcome is, right? And then I can test and et cetera, the things that we would normally associate with digital media that we start thinking about within our own customer-led media. And here's an example from Wealthfront. It is and in fact, fintechs are fantastic about this. The reward is an extra, I think it's 0.05 or 0.5% interest for 3 months, right? So you're not saying necessarily, so there's a question earlier, someone asked, what's the right kind of reward to give to people for doing things, for referral, for any of these types of things? We say, well, what? In some cases, if you really want to differentiate, tell people you'll give them a little bit more yield on their high yield savings account. It's worth it if someone brings in a customer. I mean, bringing in a new customer is hard, it's expensive. It's somewhere between $300 and $3,000 in financial services to acquire a new customer, depending on what it is. And I'm sorry about the TV. But this is this combination welcome offer and referral, and the reward on it is additional yield. Do you think people would respond to that? Do you think people are thinking about the yield on their high yield savings accounts these days? Do you think that that's a differentiator? Doesn't mean you plaster it up there. It's like everybody gets it. No, you got to do something to get it. And you got to be one of ours. Because if you're one of ours, you know how I know you're one of ours? Because you do something, right? And I love the panel this morning. We were talking about Michigan. My daughter is graduated from Michigan in May. And the concept of the working with the football team, with the alumni, with the Detroit Lions. Yeah, why wouldn't we? Why wouldn't we start saying, you know what, you can get a jersey. You can get tickets. You could get, what could we offer them to do this? It opens up a whole area of marketing that's closed down. So the beauty of the approach that we have is, and this is all I'll say about our platform, we are a SaaS platform. You connect it to your systems. We run the programs. We deliver the programs. We check for fraud, make sure the rules are met, and deliver the rewards. And what's important is that we do it in your language. So we really look upon it as a journey where you're saying, oh, did I pay the first month's fee? If you're doing loans, we can do loan applied, loan approved or declined. First payment made, et cetera, et cetera. So you can really tune in what you're trying to achieve to qualify for the reward. The second thing you want to do is you want to test and tune. So I would bet that a significant portion of you all either have a referral program or have worked on one in the past. It probably runs off of Excel, or maybe there's a form somewhere hidden on your site. The difference between running this as a kind of a real program is you can do things like testing and targeting, right? So there's a question I was asked earlier, how do I know how much to give? Well, how do I know how much to bid? How do I know what my subject line should be on an email? How do I know whether to use a blue button or a red button on my landing page? How do I know? You test it. We all know this. It is very funny. I told you earlier that we started this company, Informatica, that was testing. At the time, no one tested. And it was the weirdest thing. You'd go in, and the complaint that we would hear is people would say, you've just doubled our work because I got to create 2 versions of it. And we went into Google, who was not doing any testing at the time, to test their AdWords interface. And we gave them 5 ideas of things to test. And they're like, we're not going to test any of them. I'm like, why? And they said, because none of those ideas are googly enough. Okay, moving on. We did test them, it did work. So measuring, testing, and tuning, understanding what your outcome is. This is a really key one, right? So you should expect kind of meaningful, but not dominant percentage of your new customer acquisition to come through a program like a referral program or advocacy program. If you want to get it to be a killer contributor, you got to start looking at how people behave. And so this is actual data. On the far left here, you have successful advocates. This is just somebody advocated and it resulted in something. In the middle, you have, a revenue driver who's brought in 3 or more, and then super advocates who've done 5 or more. And what you see is obviously there are significantly fewer as the number of actions goes up, but what you see is that the impact that they have goes higher. So actually saying we start out with a basic program and then we grow it to say, oh, once we have people who've done more than 3 actions, we can put in a program that maybe have a different reward. Or maybe we put in challenges, right? And then when it gets into this kind of ambassador influencer, and the distinction I make between an ambassador and an influencer is an ambassador is somebody who has high reach and high impact. Who is your customer? And an influencer is somebody who has high reach and high impact who you buy from an influencer agency, right? It's Beyonce or whoever it is that you want to, because they may still be incredibly effective, but an ambassador is somebody who's like, yeah, I bank with these people and I'm influential. And I expect to be treated as such, but I can express, I can talk about something in a way that other people can't. That make sense? And what you see is as you start creating these new programs and chaining them together, you can move someone from a lower stage into a higher stage. Naturally, they keep their link and they keep their code, but they start getting different dashboards and different rewards, and maybe you call them every once in a while, or you treat them the way you'd expect to treat someone who's driving more revenue for you. The next thing is you can start targeting. And this is really key. I mean, I really love there was so many things in the panel around, again, the sports teams, but also, working with builders if you're selling loans. We work with ISPs, internet service providers, who have a very, very, very similar problem to banks. Because can anyone tell me the difference between Verizon, Cox, and AT&T for internet service to your home? Anyone? Yeah, I mean, that's the problem, right? Enormously high acquisition costs, enormously high value if you can keep people around. So having someone who stays 2 years or more can be extraordinarily profitable, but people buy it infrequently and they suck at buying it, right? And this kind of advocacy really works. And what we see there is the property managers are big drivers, right? So if someone owns a multi-unit property, they're the one that the person who, I moved in and they go, hey, you know what? We use Comcast in this building. Now, there may be 3 options, but they say, oh yeah, here's Comcast and I can give you $100 off, right? Who are those people inside of your communities? Who are the kind of communities of interest around? How do I target them? And so we could target behavioral audiences, like I talked to you about that journey. You say, I want to bring in people who are in their first 3 months. I want to talk about people who already are using their debit card. And I want to think about seeing if I can get them into a loan, right? But we want to target people behaviorally. But you can also target these qualified audiences like parents, students, teachers, military, and really start dialing in a way that hasn't been super possible before. And this is an actual, this is an insurance company that we work with. They have friends, employees that they target, ambassadors they target, but also California policyholders, right? And so whatever group we can get, we can build a program to uniquely target them. And then once all this is in place, we start putting in programs that move people up the value chain kind of in the later stages of the journey. I think I've made that point. All right, I want to have a little bit of time for questions. I want to talk a little bit about the 10% rule. If you are a CMO, you should consider setting the 10% rule. The 10% rule says that 10% of all my new acquisition should be coming from directly attributable referral/advocacy channel, period. If you don't have that, you just have a weak channel. And if you have a weak channel, why would you not fix that? If you had a channel that gave you better customers at a lower CAC, why would you not fix that? If you have less than 10%, you have to fix that. All right? Now, you can get to 20%, you can get to 30% if you start doing things like targeting, like having influencers and ambassadors. But if the sheet that you're getting, if the screen that you're looking at through whatever analytics system you're doing doesn't have a line item that says, what is my customer-led growth, what is my earned growth, you need to get that. Because you're basically just have an undervalued channel, underexploited channel. And if you found out that you weren't sending your customers enough emails, I know nobody is not sending their customers enough emails. But if you found that out, if you found out you hired a new email person and they cut your email volume by 80%, and it was actually, they're only sending one email a month, maybe, to people, you would say, no, we got to pick it up, right? Like, this is an underexploited channel. And you'd say, yeah, there's probably a too much, but one a month is not there. The same thing holds true for customer-led growth, advocacy, referral, however you want to consider it. If you are a CMO, it is your obligation to point this out to your team and say, why am I underperforming here? And if you are doing it, why isn't it showing up in my dashboard? One of the big problems you get with the manual programs is they're so off to the side that people are like, yeah, we run it, it's fine. That's what I hear from people. Yeah, we have one, it's fine. Is it generating 10% of your new customer acquisition? Hell if I know, right? But it's fine, right? Well, at this point, with the technology available, it should be better than fine. And the next step is to see, how big can you get it? And it was funny, in one of the conversations, there was a little pushback that said, well, are we getting too much through referral? And I was like, if you knew you were getting 20% more profitable customers through this channel, what number would be too high a percent? Right? All right, thank you very much.
So I might have the too high of a percent issue. And I don't know if your software can help us. We're an RIA, and we have about between 90 and 98% coming from referral because we're very good at what we do. I was just hired as the first marketing person, so it's not because of me. It's because the company rocks.
Yeah.
Clients stay for life, multi-generation clients. 20 years, one person is left. So does your I feel like you're speaking to banks. Does your software work for RIAs?
You cannot do incentivized offers for registered investment advisors because there are state regulations.
Well, without a disclosure, though, there is a
You could do disclosure. You could do small amounts.
Yeah, it's $250 a year.
What you find is that it's not that motivating. What I think RIAs should be talking about is, I don't necessarily think that unless you're extremely large, we work with customers that have tens, thousands, hundreds, thousands, millions of customers.
Yeah, we have 880 households.
Yeah, that may just be not enough people to yield from.
Okay.
But what you want to think about is don't think about it as a reward or a payment, because that's our instinctive thing. I'll give a gift card or I'll give an account credit. Think about what is a recognition. Like, I still believe that if somebody signs up for
a badge.
How about a thank you?
Yeah, a handwritten thank you note. Yeah, we do those.
Yeah,
Gift.
I sort of look. I was working with this university who said 90% of our customers come through referral. I said 100% of your customers come through referral, right? Like, nobody is going to an online university without somebody telling them that it's okay, right? You just don't know that. So why don't we just have a program? Forget the standard referral. Have a program where people just say, hey, who told you? And then send an email to them. It's like, forward this email on to your friend. We just want to say thank you. Right? Don't you think you would appreciate that? Like, if you randomly got an email, it's like, hey, I joined Western Governors University, and it's great. You know what? They have this thing for you. They're going to say thank you, or they're going to give you an invitation to this event, or they're going to allow you to speak somewhere.
A vest or a fruit basket.
So many vests in your industry.
Yeti.
So much vest.
Mug.
Yes.
Tumblers.
A pair of Haka shoes, right? Yeah. What's the uniform? All right. Anything else? Oh, one more, come on.
What's the sweet spot from a customer base size for you guys?
Chris, you here?
Question was, what's the sweet spot for a customer?
They're under about 50,000 accounts, it's a little rough. You know, because there's only so much you can get out of it. Over time, it'll work if you're building, so you're a fintech and building, that's totally fine. We've worked with customers that have 10, but it gets a little lean. Other questions? Is this interesting? All right, good. Well, I appreciate all of your attention and time. Thank you. Oh, no.